When did gravity give you the middle finger? I was living with my grandmother and my sister and I stayed in the basement. The stairs down were not only loosely carpeted but incredibly steep, and I'd fallen down them rather consistently, but I was usually fine. I was 14 and helping her move things into her shed when I slipped and bounced down each step on my butt. I still don't know for sure if I broke anything that day, but when I got to the bottom I passed out immediately. My wife did something similar. At first we thought that she was fine, but later discovered that she had fractured 2 vertebrae and crushed 2 discs. Usually at the top of a 5-meter ladder and I fumble my electrical tape. 5 meters doesn't seem a long way until you've climbed it 300 times. Or until you fall off. I slipped in a Wendy's parking lot yesterday and landed hard on my knees but never dropped the food. I'm mildly crippled now, but I sure as crap am not hungry. As an ex-delivery driver for Domino's, you'd be surprised at how often you'll save a stranger's pizza and slam your knees or back into the ground while maintaining a perfectly level bag, lol. When I climbed to the top of a jungle gym in 1st grade, jumped down and landed face first on a bed of tiny gravel and bit through my lip. Gravity flipped me the bird and gave me 26 stitches that day. Wowza, that's a lot of stitches, especially for young child. I had 15 stitches in my arm from a surgery, which is nothing compared to your trauma. My scar tissue did turn into painful keloid for 6 months. I just talked surgeon into injecting steroids, which is helping it to calm down. I actually read a story about an astronaut once. He said in it he spent so long in space that after he got back from the grocery store, he just dropped stuff expecting it to float. LOL, nope. There's video of that. When I had a parachute malfunction in the army, I was the last guy out of the plane and the first to hit the ground. Never knew the brain has a reset button. Not knowing who you are is way scarier than how you got to that point. I live in a coastal town and there's a lot of floating docks. I and my buddies, when I was maybe about 8, were throwing the cast bet on a particularly floaty dock. Basically, if you weren't in the middle, the edge would dip down where you stepped. Now we also had a net at the end of a stick for fishing with us, and I saw a butterfly and I chased it to the end of the dock. When my left foot hit the edge of the dock, it dipped and I slipped with the grain of the wood and had to have 47 splinters removed from my foot by my neighbor, the dermatologist. It was horrendous. Gravity fricked me. I really wish I hadn't read that. Climbing over a fence during tag manhunt as a kid. The leg of my jeans got caught. Slammed face first into concrete. Black eye. 6 stitches and severe concussion. Frick yeah to gravity. Working in a national park last week. Walking back to grab some gear. Trip on one end of a 2-foot long, relatively skinny stick. Said stick proceeds to dig its other end into the ground, and in the fumble panic steps following initial trip, somehow gets caught up in my feet and ends up rocketing towards my face and smacking me in the chin hard enough to draw blood. No one else saw though, so we good. The old jump to your feet quickly and look around to see if anyone saw you. When I was 16, I was on a climbing wall at a Boy Scout summer camp. The instructor wasn't paying attention and when I fell from 30 feet, the kid belaying me panicked and didn't stop my fall. A Mediflight and a night in the hospital later. Honestly, could have been a lot worse. This isn't gravity giving you the finger, it was that kid. When I was skateboarding as a kid and went over the quarter ramp for the first time, gotta tell ya, it didn't quite succeed. Gravity is at its worst when it teams up with its buddies Snow and Stairs. Sometimes it just doesn't pay to be a creature that walks upright on 2 legs. Every freaking day, bud. I don't know what laws of physics I broke to end up with this punishment, but to date, broken right thumb, 5 fractured ribs, pelvic fracture, my tailbone is destroyed, broken fibula, broke left clavicle, and I almost bit completely through my tongue. Broken both greater toes, falling up and down my stairs. That time I destroyed the muscles for my left boob and downward falling and catching myself down a flight of stairs, resulting in my name being Brockaback Booby for months. Frick, I'm forgetting a few, but that's what I've got, for my 20s at least. T was childhood. I was naive. The weather was cool, so was my mind. I saw a tree and began wondering if I could climb it faster than I had been wondering. Just when I thought I had gotten my grip, my shoes began to slip. I fell hard onto the grass and began crying as I was lost. Then I knew gravity was a BH and I was too naive to accept it. Skateboarding. I dislocated my knee far enough that I needed surgery to repair a ligament. 9 months later I can walk, but I'll never skateboard again if I plan to keep walking. I feel you on that one. I dislocated my right knee pretty bad. Torn ligament but no need for surgery. Take care, man. I had a broken leg from an awkward rollover hold in junior high wrestling. If you know about school wrestling you know this is in the winter and that will come into play, but it wasn't even believed it was broken, as I could walk on it with pain. My parents did not even take me to the doctor, but I was given dad's old crutches for my sprained ankle. I hobbled on this thing for 2 days in a lot of pain that didn't seem to be subsiding, yet one evening I was told to go and get the mail, about a half mile down the packed snow icy drive. I did okay for a while, staying to the lessly packed snow on the sides. I had done this on crutches before even just that day, but I eventually fell on the leg trying to maneuver with crutches on the packed ice snow in between the safe places and probably broke the leg the rest of the way, if not just agitating an already broken leg. After all this it did end up being broken in 2 places, but as I lay on the snow in blinding white pain all I could think of is how much I hated my parents, my coach, and the school nurse. The fricking leg is obviously broken, and if it wasn't before it is now. It didn't dawn on me until years later that this is the result of the American for-profit medical system, and while still my parents' fault for not seeking treatment, no one should ever put money above people. I should have just been taken to the hospital, not have been made to wait for my stupid parents to decide if I'm worth it. Unfortunately that is the world we live in every day. Whoa, that sucks. Hopefully you are not surrounded by buttholes anymore. I fell off my scooter when I was 9 and broke my arm. I was going at walking speed. Then when I was 14, I fell whilst doing a dance jump and broke my toe. 2001 I bailed hard skateboarding and lacerated my spleen. Spent the next 6 days in the hospital, not allowed to move, eat or drink water. Gravity won that time. What are the physics behind a spleen laceration? My mom lives across the street from a gas station. Last night I went over to her house to visit, picked up the mail and went to get the paper from the front yard. There are some old stepping stones that led to the front yard. Somehow I managed to trip on the edge of one. Made it a few steps to the grass before I took a knee. I'm happy I didn't drop the mail. The buttholes across the street got a show and applauded. During a marching rehearsal on a grass field that I was not familiar with, I'm marching backwards at like a 5 to 5 at 170 BPM and the field isn't flat and there's an incline. Long story short, I let my heel hit the incline and went flying backwards while holding my horn. Luckily I was okay, got back up and continued my sets. When I'm laying in bed with my phone in hand, to tell you how many times this happened, it happened last night while I was watching YouTube. I tried to catch it, but gravity got to me first. I was playing a game where my job was to stop a ball from hitting a barrel. The ball curved over my head, almost heading backwards to avoid me. IDKHTF this happened, but it did. I have so much face skin, and each day it gets saggier. I'm scared that one day I'll open my mouth with my head tipped back and all my skin will fall off whole like an overstretched uneasy. I was fine before I read this. A friend of mine, way back in high school so many years ago, who was witty and not popular, fell down a flight of stairs at school. He tumbled, slid to the bottom, bounced back up and announced, "Yep, gravity's still working," and went on to class. Me and my friend has these little cardboard aeroplanes that were styled after World War II planes. At a cliff next to the sea, we were throwing them at the wind so they would come back to us. My friend and I are throwing our planes for a good while, and all of a sudden when my friend throws his plane it just stops midair. It was like a cartoon. The thing just dropped like 40 feet off a cliff or so, we thought. Turns out it was stuck on the cliff. In middle school I was walking down the stairs for lunch, going with the flow of the rest of the kids, when I got distracted by the sound of the school band playing and skipped the last 2 steps from the first floor. I landed so hard on my knees, I bleed a little and felt so humiliated. I'm 30 now and I'm not embarrassed to fall, but in middle school I was so self-conscious and I had so many eyes on me. Ugh. It still makes me cringe. XX. When I fell in a water park because it had one of those buckets that dumps water over the kids area and I decided I wanted to leave whatever I was doing beforehand and go get dumped on by the bucket. Fell and slammed my butt onto the concrete that was under 3 inches of water at most, right before the bucket dropped. To save myself dignity when telling the story why I was sore for close to a week, I told anyone who asked that I actually fell running into the wave pool. Took an impressive tumble in a parking lot which resulted in an ambulance ride and a 14 inches metal rod now holding my arm together. And that's how my bachelor party turned out to be a 2-hour party instead of a great weekend. At the age of 10 when I started developing tea, my boobs are officially old enough to drink in every country of the world. I'm a volunteer fireman and fell about 12 feet off a ladder a month or so ago. Broke 3 bones and pulled a ligament off the bone. Been out of my full-time work since it happened, of course. Just in time for the holidays. Time number 1 was when I was about 14. I stood on a rolly chair to get to the attic door to pull it down. That didn't go so well and I cracked both knees on the very thinly carpeted concrete floor. Time number 2 was 2 days ago. I was out on some property my family owns in the mountains exploring a waterfall. I turned right into a tree branch and gravity took my glasses and flung them right off the falls. Had to find someone day after Thanksgiving in a small town to get contacts from so I could see to drive home today. Now that I think about it, maybe it was stupidity, not gravity. Abseiling down a vent shaft at the mine I worked at, I left the belay behind and jumped on my prusik to retrieve it, grabbed it and my out bent and came off the rope as I bounced on it. Thank F $ and K for the belay. I went camping for about a week and the campground we stayed at had a quote unquote park, but it was really just a bunch of wooden platforms and there was about 6 of them and you could climb them and each one was taller than the last I was there. With my cousins and he was really fit and we worked out a lot and he could get up to the top one, which was about 8-10 feet up in the air. And my cousin invited his friends too and they could all get up to the platform. At the time I was about 10 or 11. And I wanted to be cool like everyone else so I told him to pull me up and sure enough he and his friends managed to pull me up and I started walking around the platform in circles. It was about 7 by 7 feet wide. And turns out that one of the wooden boards that was supposed to have been nailed in wasn't nailed and when I was walking I tripped on it, did about 2 backflips and luckily land flat on my back. I remember about halfway through my fall that my vision just disappeared like I couldn't see anything, it was all just black, but then I started to see again. Turns out I passed out while I was falling. And I remember waking up and not being able to breathe because I landed straight on my back. I was lucky I didn't fall on my neck or that would have been it, but I also remember that after I fell and I got my breath back that for some reason I never told my parents. IDKY just stupid 11-year-old me. Anyways, I got up and I guess I hit my head or something because for the next 3 days I couldn't see anything out of my left eye. It was all just black, but after the 4th day I could see perfectly. Fine, I'm 16 now. Until this day no one know about this except for me, my cousin, his friend and whoever reads this. If you even do read this, LOL. This turned out to be a lot longer than I thought it. Hopefully this is good enough, LOL. I had to borrow my neighbor's lawnmower, but he had it parked, essentially buried in the back of his carport, which meant I had to pick it up and carry it over some bikes and other obstacles. Carrying it out went without an issue. Mowed our lawn, no issues. Went to put it back where I got it and caught my foot on a grill leg, stumbled, planted a knee in the spokes of a bike, wreaking havoc on the tire with all 350 pounds of my tumbling force, and apparently had a minor blackout because when my focus came back I was somehow under the mower with a pile of bikes on top of us. After making a quick look around to make sure no one saw the crap show that just happened, priorities people, I extracted myself from the wreckage, dusted myself off and realized that I had broken 2 bikes and the grill leg, so had to fess up to my putzery. Good times. I was born with glass bones and paper skin. Every morning I break my legs, and every afternoon I break my arms. At night, I lie awake in agony until my heart attacks put me to sleep. My only regret is that I have boneitis crunch. I misbalanced getting onto the top bunk. Fell foot first on a hot curling iron dorm room. Roommate had left it on the nightstand and ended up with a 2nd-degree burn on the bottom of my foot. Unbelievably, I was 100% sober for all of this. I broke my butt last week, not a joke. I accidentally tore my slipper, and I hated walking without my slipper on, so I just forced myself to walk with the crappy slipper I had, and as I got to my apartment I fell from the stair and landed on my butt so hard. The pain is easing now, but I definitely had a broken butt. When I stand up too fast and my body acts like a cosmonaut who's been in space for 2 years and hasn't experienced the perpetual force of gravity. I put on a few lbs a couple years ago, but I was cycling like a madwoman and thought it was muscle and helping my fitness. Then I went on a cycling vacation in the mountains. My muscles got tired. Gravity didn't. I had to carry every extra lb over about 12k feet of climbing that day and I suffered like heck. Let me set the scene for you. I was a sophomore mechanical engineering student on one of the first snowy days of the season. My friend and I had just left our physics lecture where friction was the topic of the day. We trek across campus because why would you put the physics building and engineering buildings near each other? You walk into the engineer building and everything is that polished cement of semi-industrial spaces. I walk carefully up the stairs because I'm no fool and I have never been known for my grace. I get to the flat floor, turn to my friend and say in a mocking tone, the coefficient of friction is rather low today. I tanked. I'm laying on the floor. I didn't spill my coffee. My friend's laughing at me, and I just lay there for a moment. Clock fell on my TV. Didn't hit, but broke a chunk off my table. I don't know how it broke, but that is to be either a fragile piece or a heavy butt clock. I was playing that popcorn game on a trampoline with my friends. They bounced me up so high. Now I have neck problems and headaches if I jump. I was coming from work. It was August. I was going up the 3 tiny stairs to my house and fell up them. I may have sprained my wrist. Don't know, but it still hurts 2 years later. The steps weren't even wet. When I was 10 I had a dream in which I could fly, so I jumped off the garage roof certain that my innate ability to fly would kick in to save me from harm. I didn't break any bones, but ended up very sore, very bruised and very disappointed. When I assured my mum I could climb on the monkey bars many years ago, and that I totally had this, the scar on my chin says I didn't have this. I was drunk and wanted to fly like Superman, so I jumped off a roof and shattered my ankle. When I got up my friend dropped a bottle of candy and club on my head, knocking me back down. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.